one of my favorite memes of yours is the picture of Jesus, and I'm an anarchist, but most of my followers are
Our status,
statists.
right. To see, the idea that anything except the moral laws of nature have any legitimate moral authority over any individual consciousness in nature is completely morally invalid, and you know, it's not legitimate. It's morally illegitimate, and that's the problem, is that people do not understand the basic difference between right and wrong. That's what it all comes down to. As simple as that. I want to repeat that, and I want the listening audience to really listen to what I'm saying. The entire problem with the world today stems from the fact that almost every human being on this planet, when it comes to ratio, when it comes to percentage, the overwhelmingly vast percentage of the human population, I would say probably 99.5%, and I'm probably being generous, it's probably more than that, 99.8% if I had to actually really make an educated guess, does not actually know the difference between right and wrong. 99.8% of all human beings on earth do not actually, for real, know the difference between right and wrong. That's the whole problem of the human condition. And you ask people, do you know the difference between right and wrong? All you need to do as an experiment, do you know the difference between right and wrong? And everybody's going to say yes, because most people are liars. And they're not going to ever acknowledge that they don't really know the difference between right and wrong. They just say that they do. They believe that they do, but they don't know it. They think they know it, and they don't know it. They believe that they know it, but they don't have that real knowledge in hand. They have
And
a belief system in
that's
hand.
the main point between. I remember Christ saying, you know, there's a big difference between believing and knowing.
That's right. And in the book of
And
Hosea,
it talks about knowing.
right. And in the book of
Knowing
Hosea,
is where
sorry, go ahead.
internally in your entire being, you've got a commitment
Yep.
unto death.
You've destroyed all doubt internally, and it's absolutely through every energetic aspect of your being, and you are going to be committed to that fully, where you have no existential doubt about it. Okay? See, in the book of Hosea, you mentioned Jesus saying that there's a big difference between believing and knowing, and putting that into practice. But in the Old Testament, in Hosea, it says, "My people have been destroyed for a lack of knowledge." And this is what we're seeing today. And the knowledge that they're talking about is the difference between right and wrong behavior. You know, people don't know natural law, which is God's law. It's the laws of the creator of the universe regarding morality and the consequences of behavior. And we are seeing the consequences unfold because the vast majority of the people on this planet are immoral beings who do not know the difference between right and wrong and aren't interested in that knowledge. They don't want it. They don't want to do the work of knowing it. They don't want to do the work of destroying their existing immoral belief systems in their own mind. They think the world's going to magically change when they don't have to change. That's what they erroneously believe. The world doesn't.
All we need is a better king.
The blue avians are showing up. Trump's here to save us.
All we need is a better king.
That's it. You know, but ask them, what are you doing to change your mind regarding the definitive knowledge of right versus wrong? And there is a definitive knowledge of right versus wrong. Oh, yes, it does exist. Whoever is out there thinking that doesn't exist, or that's just a construct, or that's just, you know, something that only exists in human, you know, subjective, you know, thoughts in the human mind. No, incorrect. You are eternally incorrect if you believe that. There is objective truth regarding what behaviors are rights and what behaviors are wrongdoings. Absolutely, definitively, objectively true differences between behaviors that are rights and behaviors that are wrongs. And this is the problem, is that people have not committed themselves in their understanding and in their study to actually learn that distinction. They will not do it because they don't want the responsibility that comes with that knowledge of conscience. Conscience is the knowledge of the definitive difference, of the definitive objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior under natural law. That is what conscience is. And you just break it down in the word. Science. Con means with or together, and science means to know, from the Latin sciere. Okay, that's it. To know together. Common sense. Common sense knowledge is the knowledge of conscience, of the difference between right and wrong. And here's what we have. We don't have that knowledge. We don't have that conscience. People don't even have the knowledge of conscience, and let alone are they exercising their conscience to choose right over wrong, because they don't even have the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong. Okay? In the Old Testament, in Genesis, they talk about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay? And to eat of that tree did not mean to learn the difference between good and evil. I hear this completely asinine in biblical interpretation of Genesis all the time. It does not mean that you think you know the difference between right and wrong, folks. There is such a thing as knowing the difference between right and wrong, because that's objective knowledge, and those are the laws of the Creator. Of course, the Creator of the universe wishes that knowledge to be known. It's not dangled like unknowingly forever, like a torture. It's dangled before somebody. It's something that they can never reach or know. That's solipsistic mindset, to say no one can ever know.
Say you can never know.
Can never know. Exact solipsism. Exactly. Of course we can know the difference between right and wrong. Okay? What in biblical terms the allegory was about is, it's a mistranslation and a misunderstanding of the contextual understanding of the verse in Genesis. It is not saying you're forbidden to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because you shouldn't claim to know good and evil. You shouldn't claim to know what good is, what evil is, what right is, what wrong is. No, that's wrong. That's a wrong interpretation. The true interpretation, it comes from the Hebrew, the translation. I don't recall the actual verb in Hebrew off the top of my head, but to eat. It's a mistranslation of the context of the word that they translate as to eat. It means to arbitrate. Okay? The real translation should be, you're forbidden to arbitrate what good and evil are, the fruit of the tree of good and evil. That may not be arbitrated. Okay? The verb to eat is mistranslated, because to eat, what does to eat mean? It means to consume, to take into oneself. Okay? The mistranslation is, to take into oneself does not mean to physically eat / consume with the mouth, like taking a bite of something and swallowing it. Okay? That's not what it means. It means to take it upon yourself, to arbitrate the difference, which means just think of it however you feel like thinking about it. If you think it's good, then it's good. If you think it's wrong, then it's wrong. That's called moral relativism. It means that there's no right and wrong. It's just up to our preferences and whims and subjective interpretation. Okay? That's Satanism. That's why it was the one forbidden thing to do, is never proclaim yourself the arbitrator of right and wrong. And this is what almost all of humanity has done. That's why we're kicked out of the garden. That's why we are ejected from the garden and of the paradise and going into the total prison as a species. Because we have assigned ourselves to be the arbitrators of good and evil. We have assigned ourselves to be the arbitrators of right and wrong. Not to discover what they are, okay? Not to discover according to the natural laws of creation that are the Creator's laws of the universe what right and wrong actually are, and yes, they are discoverable, eternal, and true principles. Okay? But we as a species have said we are going to arbitrate for ourselves what right and wrong are. So we are going to make up the difference and distinction between right and wrong in our own minds subjectively. That's moral relativism, and it is the second tenet of Satanism right next to pure egotism. And if you just look at how much of the world is egotistic and morally relativistic, that's all you really need to know. You want to know what the dominant religion of planet Earth is? It's not Christianity. It isn't Islam. It isn't Judaism. It's Satanism.